Hello, dear friends. Pay attention to what is happening around you right now. Not in the news. Not in the official statements of governments or institutions that have never found a way to speak honestly about what is actually occurring at the deeper levels of this planet's transformation. Not in the mainstream conversation that circles endlessly around the surface of events without ever touching what is driving them from below. Pay attention to something closer than any of that. Pay attention to the specific, personal, impossible to fabricate quality of your own inner experience over the past several months. To the things you have noticed, but perhaps not yet found a framework to fully understand. To the experiences that felt too significant to dismiss, but too unusual to comfortably discuss with most of the people in your life. Because the Pleiadians say that what you have been noticing, the signs that have been appearing quietly, persistently, in the interior landscape of your own consciousness, are not random. They are not the ordinary fluctuations of an ordinary life moving through ordinary time. They are the last signs before the solar flash. Not the last in the sense of final warnings before catastrophe. The Pleiadians are not transmitting fear today. They never transmit fear. What they transmit is clarity. And the clarity they want to offer about what these signs actually mean is something that, once received, changes the experience of this moment from one of confusion or vague unease into something very different. Into recognition. Into the specific, grounded, deeply relieving recognition of someone who's been carrying a question for a very long time and has finally been given an answer that actually fits. Stay with this transmission all the way to the end. What the Pleiadians say in the final section about what to do with these signs is the most practically important part of everything they want to communicate today. There is something about the current period that those who study the longer patterns of human history and cosmic cycles consistently describe as unprecedented. Not in the sense that nothing similar has ever happened before. The Pleiadians and many ancient traditions describe previous moments of significant planetary frequency shift, but in the sense that the speed and the breadth and the simultaneous nature of what is currently occurring has no recent equivalent. Multiple systems of the ordinary world are showing stress simultaneously. The inner lives of millions of sensitive people are changing simultaneously. The shared frameworks that once provided stable ground for understanding what reality is and what human beings are loosening simultaneously. And the signs the Pleiadians are about to describe, the specific, observable, personally verifiable signs that appear in the inner lives of those who are sensitive enough to perceive them when the solar flash threshold is genuinely near. These signs are appearing simultaneously in millions of people around the world right now. This is not coincidence. It is correlation. The signature of a field event of extraordinary magnitude beginning to express itself in the consciousness of the beings who inhabit that field. Here is what the Pleiadians say these signs look like. The first sign is the acceleration of resolution. Throughout most of human history, the ordinary pace of inner development has followed a rhythm that is, by most measures, slow. Old patterns taking decades to surface and be addressed. Wounds sustained early in life requiring entire lifetimes of patience before genuine healing becomes accessible. The movement of a consciousness from one stage of its development to the next typically requiring years or even decades of sustained effort, experience, and often considerable suffering. In 2026, for those who are genuinely paying attention, something has changed about this pace. Patterns that seemed immovably fixed are suddenly becoming available for resolution. Insights that once would have required years of sustained inner work to arrive are appearing in weeks or even days. Relationships that carried long-standing unresolved dynamics are moving, spontaneously and sometimes surprisingly, toward completion or genuine transformation. Old wounds that had been managed rather than healed are finding the conditions that allow actual healing to occur. Many people interpret this acceleration as simply a result of getting older or wiser, or as the product of whatever specific inner work they have been doing. And while neither of these explanations is wrong, the Pleiadians say they are incomplete. The acceleration is not primarily the result of individual effort. It is the result of the field, of the rising solar frequencies moving through the consciousness of every being on this planet, carrying with them an energy that accelerates the movement of what was stuck, that loosens what was held, that brings to the surface what was hidden with a thoroughness and a speed that individual effort alone could never produce. This is the first sign. And if your inner life has felt unusually accelerated recently, if things have been moving through and completing in ways that surprise you, you are already experiencing what the Pleiadians are describing. The second sign is the crumbling of what was once certain. There's a quality of solidity that certain beliefs and certainties carry when they are genuinely held. A feeling of groundedness, of knowing where one stands, of having a framework that, however incomplete, provides a stable structure for navigating the experience of being alive. In the period before a major frequency shift, this solidity begins to change. Not through any particular crisis or confrontation. Not because someone has argued the certainties away or because new evidence has emerged that makes them untenable, but through a quiet, persistent, growing sense that things which once felt completely settled are no longer quite as settled as they appeared. That questions which were once easy to dismiss with confident answers are now more difficult to set aside. That the world, examined honestly, is stranger and more open and more genuinely uncertain than the frameworks of ordinary understanding suggested. Many people experience this as disorientation, as the loss of the solid ground of certainty beneath their feet, as something to be anxious about and compensated for with an increased grip on whatever certainties remain. The Pleiadians say it is the opposite of loss. It is the return of genuine openness. The preparation of the inner space for frameworks of understanding that are larger, more accurate, and more genuinely alive than the ones that are crumbling. The dissolution of frameworks that were never quite adequate being replaced by a willingness to not know, which is the only authentic starting point for beginning to genuinely understand. If the certainties that once organized your understanding of what is real and what is possible have been feeling less certain recently, you are experiencing the second sign. The third sign is an unprecedented synchronization of inner experience across large numbers of people. One of the most remarkable aspects of the current period, for those who pay attention to these things, is how many people are describing virtually identical inner experiences simultaneously, without coordinating with each other, without belonging to the same communities or following the same teachings, without any obvious external explanation for why the same changes in sleep, the same physical sensations, the same emotional experiences, and the same inner pressures would be appearing in millions of people at the same time. People waking between 2 and 4 in the morning with unusual alertness. People reporting that old emotional patterns are surfacing with unexpected intensity. People noticing a growing inability to maintain the comfortable distances they once kept between themselves and what they actually feel. People describing a heightening of sensitivity to energy, to environment, to the subtle qualities of human interaction that previously passed below the threshold of ordinary awareness. The experiences are too specific, too consistent, and too widespread to be adequately explained by cultural trends or the ordinary influence of shared media. Something else is producing them. Something that operates not through the channels of information and social influence, but through the field itself, through the energetic environment that all of these people share. This synchronization is itself a sign, the signature of what the Pleiadians describe as a field event affecting the consciousness of an entire civilization simultaneously. And the solar flash, in their understanding, is precisely that kind of event. not something that happens to individuals in isolation, but something that moves through the field that connects all of them, and whose approach is registered by those sensitive enough to detect it in experiences that are strikingly, sometimes startlingly, similar. If you have been comparing notes with others and discovering that what you are going through is not unique to you, that something very similar is happening to people you have never met in places you have never been, you are witnessing the third sign. The fourth sign is what the Pleiadians call the intensification of the call of authenticity. In the period before a major frequency shift, the gap between who a person genuinely is and who they have been performing becomes increasingly uncomfortable to maintain. The distance between the inner life and the outer expression grows more costly. The energy required to continue being someone other than who one actually is escalates, quietly but noticeably, until what was once a manageable investment becomes something that feels genuinely unsustainable. This produces, in many people, what might be described as a crisis of authenticity, a confrontation with the ways in which the life they are actually living does not reflect who they actually are, a growing inability to continue pretending, performing, managing perceptions, or suppressing what they genuinely feel and know and value. For some, this appears as a relationship that can no longer continue in its old form, not because anything dramatic has changed in the relationship itself, but because the person in the relationship has changed sufficiently that the old dynamic no longer fits. For others, a career or a role that has stopped fitting the person who has grown beyond it. For others still, a version of themselves that they have been presenting to the world that no longer reflects who they actually are in their private experience. The discomfort of this confrontation is real. The Pleiadians do not minimize it. The process of becoming more genuinely oneself, after years or decades of having been something else in the service of belonging or safety or approval, is not painless. It requires courage that is rarely celebrated, and it produces disruptions that can feel, from inside them, like things going wrong rather than things going right. But the Pleiadians want to offer something about this that changes its meaning without minimizing its difficulty. This confrontation is not the universe punishing you for having been inauthentic. It is the rising frequency doing exactly what it is designed to do, revealing what is real and dissolving what is not, making room, in the specific structure of your specific life, for a quality of authenticity and genuine expression that the old frequency could not have supported. This is the fourth sign, and it may be the one that is producing the most immediate, visible disruption in the lives of those who are experiencing it. The fifth sign is the appearance of what many describe as meaningful encounters. People appearing at precisely the right moment. Conversations that carry exactly what was needed without the person delivering them having any way of knowing what that was. Books and teachings and transmissions, like this one, finding their way to exactly the people who are ready for what they carry, at exactly the moment when they are ready to receive it. A quality of synchronicity that goes beyond the occasional meaningful coincidence that most people experience from time to time. A persistent, accumulating pattern of events arriving with a precision that strains the concept of randomness. Of things lining up in ways that feel deliberately arranged rather than accidentally occurring. The Pleiadians describe this as the personal field of resonance becoming more active. The inner state of an awakening consciousness beginning to attract, with increasing precision, the outer experiences that genuinely serve its development. The universe, in their understanding, becoming more directly responsive to the quality of awareness that a soul is developing, offering, with greater frequency and greater specificity, exactly what is needed for the next step of genuine growth. This responsiveness of the universe is itself a sign of the rising frequency. In a lower frequency environment, the relationship between inner state and outer experience is more diffuse, more delayed, harder to perceive as genuinely connected. As the frequency rises, The relationship becomes more direct, more immediate, more visibly operative. If your life has been filling with meaningful encounters and meaningful timing recently, if things have been finding you with a precision that goes beyond comfortable coincidence, you are experiencing the fifth sign. The sixth sign is what the Pleiadians describe as the preparation of the physical body, a spontaneous movement in many sensitive individuals toward what genuinely nourishes their physical system and away from what suppresses it. Not driven by intellectual knowledge about nutrition or health, but by a growing inner guidance, sometimes quiet, sometimes quite insistent, about what the body actually needs in this particular period of its development. The body knows what is being asked of it, and as the solar flash draws nearer, the body's own intelligence about its needs becomes louder, clearer, and more difficult to override with the habits and preferences of the ordinary mind. Some people find themselves drawn spontaneously toward more time in natural environments. Others notice a growing desire for stillness and silence that was not previously so strong. Others find that their relationship with sleep has shifted, that rest is being taken more seriously, or that the body is communicating more clearly about when it needs it. This preparation is intelligent. The body is not asking for these things arbitrarily. It is asking for what it needs in order to receive, without being destabilized by what the solar flash carries. Listen to it. The wisdom it is offering is more accurate than most of the information that comes from outside. The seventh sign, and the one that the Pleiadians say is appearing most strongly and most consistently in the current period, is what they describe as the deepening of the sense of imminence. A growing quality of inner knowing, not a thought, not a belief, not a conclusion arrived at through reasoning, that something of great significance is very close, that the long waiting that many sensitive souls have carried throughout their entire lives is approaching its completion, that whatever it is they came here for is not something that will be delayed indefinitely into some distant and abstract future. It is something that is arriving now, in this period, in the specific circumstances of the lives they are actually living. This sense of imminence does not produce urgency in the anxious sense. It does not generate panic or demand dramatic action. It produces, in those who can hold it steadily, something more like a quality of settledness, of being genuinely present with the moment they are actually in, rather than projected into a future that is always just out of reach, of recognizing that what they have been waiting for is already here, already beginning, already moving through the specific life they are already living. If you have been feeling this, if a quality of quiet, certain imminence has been present in your experience in recent months, you are experiencing the seventh sign. The Pleiadians want to close this transmission with what they consider the most important guidance they can offer in response to these signs. Do not try to accelerate what is already accelerating. Do not try to manufacture signs that are not yet present or perform a readiness that has not yet genuinely developed. Do not compare the pace and the form of your own experience with what others describe and judge your own development by that comparison. Simply pay attention with the most honest, most open, most genuinely receptive quality of attention available to you, to what is actually happening in your inner life, to the signs that are actually present, however subtle, however ordinary seeming, however easy to explain away. Because the solar flash does not require you to have a dramatic experience. It requires you to be genuinely present with the experience you are actually having, to take it seriously, to let it be what it actually is rather than what you expected it to be or what someone else told you it should look like. The last signs are not spectacular. They are quiet. They are personal. They are already here. And the soul that has learned to notice what is quiet and to take seriously what is personal is already prepared to receive what comes next. Take what resonates. Leave what does not. And trust yourself completely to know the difference. This content is offered for spiritual reflection, symbolic interpretation, and personal insight only. It is not presented as scientific fact, medical advice, or a prediction of real-world events. The narration in this video is generated using artificial intelligence voice technology. Please use your own discernment and personal judgment when engaging with this material.